Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another vinyl update where I go through a series of records that are making it into the beloved record collection behind me. Oh my God, you're my love, you're my life. God damn it, you're my rock. Before we get too deep into that, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the good people over at Reverb LP. It's a website, it's an app, it's a fantastic place to buy, sell, and exchange vinyl to feed that record collection addiction. It is a global marketplace, so you can get records from all around the web, a streamlined checkout process so you can get what you want quickly, dedicated customer service so you're not getting ripped off in the process. The site and app run nicely and smoothly. It's such a great big wide world of vinyl. If you want to see the site or grab the app, hit up the link down below. And yeah, just support the people who are supporting us. Thank you. All right, first off in this big bunch, we got a big bunch. First off in this big bunch, I want to say you guys know that I'm an epic gamer. Okay, I'm a hardcore epic gamer. And right now we have two video game soundtracks making it into the record collection, which are actually both kind of blasts from my past. First off, we have on vinyl, for the first time, the Donkey Kong Country 2 soundtrack. Shout out to Dixie Kong right there. The art rendering is not the cleanest on this thing because it's not exactly, I don't think this is super official. I don't know if this is Nintendo endorsed, but still shout out to Kawadeka Records for coming through with this one. Music by David Wise. Shout out to him. We have side A, side B. It's very short bits and snippets of all the soundtrack bits from the game. Excuse me. And yeah, it's a pretty clean pressing. Sounded decent. It's got a little poster of the literal art that's on the front and the back of the record itself, and the vinyl is this wonderful light blue but also clear streak. It reminds me of the ocean picture of the water level depicted on the front of the cover. But look guys, if you want some good old school video game soundtracks, like Donkey Kong Country is it. Like some of that stuff was unironically predictive of vaporwave, I would say. Some people have come to the conclusion on the internet. So very fun. Loving that I'm getting some epic video game soundtracks in the record collection for the first time. And also another video game soundtrack, the new ToeJam and Earl soundtrack. If you guys were gaming in the days of you remember a lot of video games having a very weird, cartoony, quirky aesthetic to them, like Clay Fighter or even Earthworm Jim and that sort of thing. And ToeJam and Earl was one of those titles. And now they're coming back with a new game, new soundtrack. And I do remember the soundtrack to ToeJam and Earl being particularly funky, and it seems like they have embraced exactly that aesthetic with this brand new double LP soundtrack. And it's a lot of synths, it's a lot of sequence percussion, and also quite a bit of live funky bass from Mr. Cody Wright, who has a very heavy bit of like an envelope filter on his bass, so you kind of get that squelchy wonka wow 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 quality on the bass. I do love this gatefold. The package came together really nicely. What's even more amazing is that the record is pressed in this insanely bright orange, which looks lovely on the camera. And I actually didn't look at the other record over here because it is three sides, so the other side must have an etching or something. This one's a nice deep red, and the other side is in fact an etching, which you can kind of make out there. There we go. There it is, mostly on the right side. There we go. That is so cool. That is such a cool little etching on the other side. Nice. Very ambitious package for this video game, which now that I'm seeing the record, I didn't know until I actually had the record in front of me, is being presented by Adult Swim Games as well. Pretty cool. And it actually came with this concept art book as well, which has the soundtrack on CD, a bunch of pictures of characters in the game. Actually, pretty dope, pretty cool. Very epic packaging for this new video game soundtrack. Again, love the way it came together, and very colorful, very fun. Like the game itself. I haven't played the new game yet. I'm thinking about trying to do that as soon as I get off of my Super Smash Brothers addiction, which most likely will never happen, but hey, you know what? We can always hope. Maybe I'll send myself to Super Smash Rehab or something. But moving on from there, we have a nice dope 10-inch from Sean Price and Small Professor. They actually have a new little record out now with some remixes and some extra stuff, and the Small Pro in production on there is fantastic. And that's also the case for this 10-inch too. Refrigerator P is the name of this single, and it's got a few remixes on there. Pretty thick pressing, standard black record. Oh, that's a pretty cool label on the other side. And it's actually a really great track. Like, it's super smooth but gritty production. And Sean Price, as always, sounds like a total beast on the mic. Really mean mugging type of individual. All right, moving on from there. This came from a fan of the show. I wasn't even aware of this Onyx collective release before I reviewed the band very late last year, but yeah, some pretty... Excuse me. Yes, this is some pretty cool, slightly avant, weirdo New York jazz that I'm not even sure if you guys will be able to easily find a copy of, honestly. And weirdly enough, this thing was released in tandem with Supreme, Second Avenue Rundown. It's got a handful of pretty cool tracks on it. I mean, Onyx Collective is a pretty neat outfit that I need to keep my ears on, because every release that I've heard from them so far just sounds like a completely different group. They're always reinventing themselves, at least to some degree, on every release that I come across. So looking forward to what they're doing in the future, and definitely feeling fortunate to have such a rare record of theirs sitting in my collection. Wonderful. This next one is not so rare, but also amazing. Finally, Quasimoto's The Unseen makes it into the record collection. Someone asked me the other day, what Mad Lib project would I recommend outside of, like, you know, the obvious Mad Villainy Pinata stuff, and I had a bit of a brain fart, and I threw back to you know, his old Loot Pack days. But I should have said The Unseen from Quasimoto. This is a fantastic record from Lord Quas. If you don't know, Quasimoto is essentially producer Madlib's alternate rapping persona, and you know, often he's on this record caught rapping in sort of like a pitched voice over some very weird, abstract, soulful, jazzy, kind of repetitive production. You know, the best thing about this record and Madlib's rapping on it, while he is not the best lyricist and MC that you're going to come across, he does create this incredible sense of just being very cartoony and very weird. Listening to this feels like I'm just caught in the oddest animation concept ever. I just feel like I'm just trapped in this weird illustrative situation right here, and it's just a very odd, funky, and I don't know, immersive experience. I don't think it's like the best thing that he's ever laid his fingers on, but you know, it's definitely got a lot of character to it and a lot of personality. And again, it's almost got like a cinematic feel to it. You know, it just feels like a world. It feels like another dimension. It feels like another place. Well, you know, like it feels like, as far as like hip hop, I've been transported into that, like that weird wacky world from you know, the Warner Brothers cartoon lore, like where Go-Go Dodo lives and that sort of thing. You know, it's very like Marvin the Martian, that sort of thing. But I'm kind of, you know, just like going into a bunch of animation that nobody probably remembers. Next, I want to give a shout out to Prince's Sign of the Times. I've said this before, and I will say it again. This is easily one of the most predictive sets of pop, rock, soul, and R&B to be released in the 1980s. A lot of what goes on this LP sounds like something that came out of the 90s, frankly, and it's a beautiful double LP set. Vinyl is pressed excellently. Loving the color scheme of this thing. Loving the outfits, loving the sleeves, loving the music on it, loving the heavy-duty sleeve that it's all packaged in, and seeing this cover art up front and personal is actually pretty excellent. I do love how Prince is out of focus, and we've got this sort of a visual set on all the instrumentation and just the stage setup in the background. And it just really is a great record, really great double LP. One of the many great albums in Prince's discography, I would say like 1999 and like Purple Rain, where you really do feel like you're transported into Prince's mind. Next, giving a shout out to Baroness Purple, really excellent record. So amazed that the band bounced back in this way after that somewhat okay double album, Green and Yellow. I feel like they kind of perfected their attempts at shooting for more of a poppy metal alternative rock combo on this LP, especially with tracks like Shock Me. Some of the Metallica influences on this album are amazing. The only thing that would have made this record and this package better, because the pressing sounds excellent, is if the record were actually purple, but it's not. Although I'm sure there was probably maybe some exclusive pressing at some point where this thing was in purple. Who the hell knows? I don't know off the top of my head, but I just feel like this album should be in purple, obviously. Of course, given that it is Baroness, and we all know the illustrious art that is usually, their works are usually decked out in. Of course, there is a very lovely booklet attached to this thing with some really great visions of skulls and flowers and nature and plants, and loving the lyrics laid out on this thing as well. So shout out to Baroness for really just giving a shit about the way that their records are pressed and presented, because it really does pay off. It looks excellent, feels excellent, sounds excellent. Also feeling and sounding excellent are these repressings of great records from the Sleater-Kinney discography from Sub Pop. Given my classic review of the Woods, I thought I would beef my collection up with some Sleater-Kinney vinyl. And of course, this sounds amazing. It sounds heavy, it sounds crushing, and even this actually sounds a little beefed up with the refreshing Sub Pop remaster they delivered on this record, or maybe it just sounds that way through the vinyl, because you do get a bit more of a bass response from the vinyl record. Nothing really to report as far as packaging or anything like that. On this side, it's pretty straightforward with the plastic sleeve, single record, quality pressing, sounds real nice. Sounds real raw, sounds real good. The gatefold over here is pretty nice, pretty fantastic. No complaints about that. It is not a very long record, though, so I wonder why they sort of bothered doing a double LP of it, but I do like this very eerie vision of the trio standing in the woods all blurred out. And this is such a weird, heavy, ominous record for them. It's so interesting that they went in this direction artistically, and frankly, this is a direction I would love to hear Sleater-Kinney revisit a little bit on a future album. I would love to hear them continue digging into the darkness that they were able to translate on that record. Moving on to another dark album, given that I loved the repressings of their other two records that I talked about in a previous vinyl update via Third Man Records, I also picked up the repressing of Melvins Houdini. And this thing is heavy, it is crushing, it is amazing. Very few heavy albums from the 90s, I think, have aged as well as this one. Of course, there are other examples, but this one sounds amazingly heavy and amazingly crushing and just fantastic. Just loving the sludge metal, devilish sludge metal vibes that this record brings forward. Also, Kurt Cobain is on this friggin' record. So, all the Kurt heads and Nirvana heads definitely will want to listen to this if you haven't, although you should already know about the Melvins at this point, since Kurt, sort of helped out their career in the first place. So, we may not know as much about the Melvins today if Kurt had not, used his platform and used his fame to sort of help bands like this along. So, hell yeah to the Melvins, hell yeah to Houdini. Excellent record. Certainly not their first record, certainly not their only amazing album, but definitely, one of their best, and one of the best sludge metal I think has to offer in general. Got some hard bop here for you guys. Monk's Music, Thelonious Monk. If you're looking to get in some jazz, okay, like maybe you don't know much about jazz and you're just trying to get started, this is an excellent starter record. Not only is this one of Thelonious Monk's best records, this album also features one of the most beautiful intro tracks of any jazz album around. Also, Art Blakey is on this thing. John Coltrane is on this thing before he came out with pretty much every classic album that he ever came out with. So you have some real giants of jazz on this one pretty easy to digest album, playing some fantastic hard bop, like amazing performances on this thing. Very bold, maybe not the flashiest, but very bold and very in your face. A lot of attitude on this record, I'll say. Pretty straightforward pressing, simple sleeve, information on the back and all that stuff. But, you know, given that this was recorded and mixed to be listened to on this format, really the value in something like this is to hear it on vinyl through a great record, rather a great sound system is what I want to say. Bit of a brain fart there. I apologize, guys. So really that's where you're getting the value out of records like that. All right, we're gonna end off with the wonderful cherry on top of very dark cherry on top of Mr. David Bowie's discography, Blackstar. I got this record late, and it took me a while to actually put it onto the turntable and listen to it. And goddamn, is this album so fantastic and so dark. It's nice when you give yourself space from a record for a while, and then you can kind of come back and listen to it almost as if, you know, you're like listening to it for the first time again. And just thoroughly impressed with the pressing and the presentation on this thing. The black on black, as you can kind of see at the very bottom, the black on black print and pressing. You can kind of catch it in the light there of all of the track times and the track titles. The record itself slides out of here and is in this super thick plastic sleeve. It's a pretty heavy duty plastic sleeve too. It's not a weak plastic sleeve. And of course it comes with this really illustrious and wonderfully printed art book. This is an excellent package for a record. This is like excellent freaking packaging. This is like 10 out of 10 packaging for this album, to have like the black on black print, to have this great book. These images of Bowie are fantastic and very ominous and strange. There's not really a single thing I can complain about with this packaging. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, so happy I got this. Not only because this is one of Bowie's best, and actually on vinyl, this record sounds a bit thicker and there's a bit more presence to the sound of it than in the somewhat dry and somewhat digital version of the recording, which is still great. But this definitely has a bit more flavor to it, at least it sounded like to me. A bit more punch, a bit more bass, and the instrumentation just had like a fuller, I'll say even a more panoramic sound to it. Whereas the digital recording, when I first reviewed the record, you know, when I downloaded it, it sounded a little squeezed together. You know, this felt like it had a lot more space to it, hearing it on this format. So super happy to have this, and just love the packaging, love the look of it, love the feel of it, love the simplicity to it, and yet the detail as well. So excellent, excellent, excellent. So this has been another vinyl update. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Hopefully you guys got some good recommendations out of this thing. If you haven't heard some of these records before, and you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. Let me know down in the comments if you like, if you wish, what records maybe have made it into your collection recently, and I will be catching you guys in the next one, okay? Anthony Fantano here. I love you. All the records that we have talked about in this video are mentioned and listed down below, and also remember, once again, the good people sponsoring us over at Reverb LP. And yeah. Over here next to my head is a playlist of videos from our vinyl update and record collection series. You can hit that up, or a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, vinyl updates forever.